Welcome to the grind.
There's a 2-hour window I get to see my woman. There's a clock ticking on her. It ain't my friend. Work wasn't easy, but we've been fit. Oh, I'm home, and she's off to bed. Oh, no. Money, my baby liar. Money.
Welcome to the Daily Grind. I'm your host, Devin Murray. I hope everyone enjoyed the first full slate of NBA action last night. I know I sure did. Especially because we kept our hot start to the NBA betting season rolling. Went 8-4-1 last night. Up over 5.5 units just 2 days into the NBA season. Make sure you're following us over at The Grind Podcast on Twitter, as simple as it can be defined. I will go ahead and apologize for what I think was my one terrible bet last night, which was on the hometown Memphis Grizzlies. Santi Aldama was out. I knew that they were going to struggle with size without Steve-O, without Ja, adjusting to the new lineup. And for some reason, I still took the Grizzlies, and they didn't stand a chance at covering that game. That's my fault. I won't apologize for betting on Trae Young. Although I regretted it, I show no remorse. The league came out for the Knicks-Celtics game and said that Jalen Brunson got fouled on his three, and instead they called a flop on him, awarded a free throw to the Celtics, a 4-point swing, and of course we pushed the +4 number for just a terrible, not beat, but that should have made us some money there. To get on to our other losses, the Jazz had won their first 6 season openers, which is why I think the line was so low. I pegged that as the fishy line of the night. It didn't really make any sense to me, and so I was trying to side against the public. Thought Vegas knew something that we didn't, but all they were doing was playing history. Said it on the preseason podcast, not expecting a lot from the Jazz this season, and they started out accordingly. The other loss that we had was the Spurs. They were leading after one quarter. It was competitive the entire game. Probably the game of the night. Once Wemby got in foul trouble, he had 4 fouls in 16 minutes, and then he came back in for, I think, literally 1 other minute and picked up his 5th foul towards the end of the third. Whenever I saw that, we were looking for a good spot to come in and hedge off of that bet by taking the Mavs. At one point, the Spurs took the lead. The Mavs got all the way down to +1.5. Then it was kind of back and forth, and I was able to snag them at -1.5. We were really close to hitting a perfect middle. It was Mavs up by 4 with just a few seconds left. And then, of course, everyone knew it was coming. Luka hits his dribble, step back 3 and just buries it, gets the cover, and tarnishes our middle, but pretty proud of myself for the hedge. All right, let's get to the fun part, where I was right a bunch. By the way, as far as fading the public, had you just straight up faded the public last night, according to this little database that I'm looking at, you would have not done so well. The public pretty much went 4-2, one on the Magic, the Celtics, with their little crap 3.5-point cover, if you want to count that. The Pistons, everyone was all over that. People seem to lose a lot of money on the Trailblazers. Scoot Henderson hoodwinked everybody into taking them. Also, the public was all over the Thunder, and they easily covered. So as far as podcast format, here on the Daily Grind, I'm just going to be going through bets, and then once or twice a week, I'll hop in and give my unsolicited opinion on a bunch of these games and a little bit more in-depth, but again, recording this a little late in the day, and we just want to get it out because I have a lot to say about many of the teams and many of the games that have already happened. So expect tomorrow a longer version of the grind and an in-depth analysis of the game so far. Probably pretty much every game so far. I'd like to hit everyone and give initial reactions, overreactions, and underreactions to the first set of games. All right, so the first walkaway winner of last night that we had was the Pacers -5, and they just destroyed the Wizards, putting up 143 points. Woo! Bruce Brown had a great debut in Indiana with his new team, going 8 for 11 for 24 points, 6 of 8 from threes, was the leading scorer in the game. Or no, sorry, Kyle Kuzma had 25, but obviously that wasn't enough. And to the surprise of no one, Jordan Poole went 0 of 6 from 3, was a 7 for 18 from the floor for 18 points, and a -12 for his plus-minus. They got out-rebounded by 6. I haven't really watched any of this game, but it went about as expected. The -5 was a joke. The next no-sweat bet winner that we had last night was the Magic -4.5, who destroyed the Rockets 116-86 on Orlando. This went also about as expected. Not looking too great for the Rockets this year. Actually, Dylan Brooks went 4 for 6 from threes last night, so he wasn't essentially the problem. He only took 7 shots, which Memphis fans are wondering where that kind of discretion has been. Unfortunately, Jabari Smith Jr., one of my flyer picks for most improved player of the year, went 0 for 4 from 3. So don't believe everything you see in Summer League, kids. The Rockets starters actually played okay as far as shooting-wise. Again, I haven't watched this game. Wasn't too interested in it last night, watching it live. Haven't gone back and watched it yet. But Amar Thompson going 1 for 7 from 3. Cam Whitmore 0 for 4 from the field. Not a lot of talent on the starting 5 and not a lot of depth on the bench, apparently. Encouraging for the Magic, though. They didn't really have a standout player. Nobody really dominated other than Cole Anthony coming off the bench and being the leading scorer for the Magic with 20 points and the highest plus-minus on the team. But their starters all contributed. Everyone shot about 50%. A decent night from 3 for this team. I'm interested to go back and watch it and see how they controlled the pace and if they dominated on the defensive end as much as it looks like they did, or if the Rockets just stank. Next up, a game that we won was the Nets +2.5. They ended up falling to the Cavs by 1 on a late Donovan Mitchell 3 that the Nets announcers were trying to say was a push-off, which it wasn't. Cope harder. I've got a decent amount to say on this game, but we'll save it for the expanded version of the grind tomorrow. I did see some people on Twitter kind of busting the Nets for having Cam Thomas take that late shot 3 for the winner, and I've got to be honest, I don't know what Jacques Vaughn is thinking. But I guess you can't hate that Cam Thomas 3 that much because he was the leading scorer, and all of his shots looked like that. That dude has the most unstable-looking jump shot that I've ever seen. Granted, whenever he hucks it up from 28 feet, it looks even worse. But my main question is, did Jacques Vaughn think that Cam Thomas was going to play crunch time for them going into the game last night? Did he think that Cam Thomas was going to be his best option for a game-winning shot whenever you're only down 1 inbounding with 10 seconds left? Or did Vaughn just get caught up in the moment and said, I got to ride who's hot? Because you got to know that Cam Thomas isn't going to the hole there. He's 6'3". I'd much rather put the ball in Dinwiddie or Bridges' hands. Somebody who's comfortable creating their own shot, but also going to the rack if they have to. 2 other quick notes from this game. I'm back in on Ben Simmons, as I've said on the previous podcasts. And I'm definitely out on Evan Mobley. That kid stinks. Did I call him Amar Thompson earlier? His name's Amen Thompson, sorry, on the Rockets. The next no-sweater was Pistons +9.5, I think, against the Heat. They lost, but they only lost by 1. Kept it close the entire game. Kind of had a chance there to win at the end. I haven't gone back and watched the entire game. But to the surprise of no one, but to the delight of everyone, Cade Cunningham came in and dropped a 30-piece in his first game back, shooting about 50% from the field on 27 shots, almost 50% from 3 as well. Had they gotten anything from All-Star Thompson, I think they would have won the game. And had they been able to keep Jimmy Buckets, who was more like Jimmy Boards, snatching up 8 offensive rebounds. But you can't be too excited about this win if you're the Heat, especially looking at the performance of Kyle Lowry, who went 0 for 1 with 0 points in 32 minutes. Coveted trade piece Tyler Hero went 7 for 24. And honestly, if it wasn't for Duncan Robinson coming and cannon 3 threes off the bench, Heat probably dropped this one at home. And going forward, you just got to worry about their size, because even with Jimmy grabbing 8 offensive rebounds and 13 total, they still lost the rebounding battle, 56-48. All right, our next victory was the Raptors, -1. I think I got them at -1. It depends on which book you were at. I saw that they were all the way up to +1. And that was our something's fishy line of the night. Sniffed that one out from a mile away. Public was a big fan of the T-Wolves there. Everyone's betting on Ant. And Ant was not the problem. He scored the first 10 points and the 11th, 12th, and 13th point were an and one created by him for Gobert. This team is going to live and die by Ant's shot, whether it's falling or whether it's not. Lucky for them, he can get it off anytime he wants to. Still not sure that the Cat and Gobert experiment is working. I saw a couple of little two-man, like high-low plays that they did. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not so much. They tried to do one late in crunch time, trying to get Cat dropping it into Gobert from above the free throw line. Rule number 1, you can't enter it to the post above the free throw line, especially from the top of the key. It was an easy turnover, just bad basketball. But the reason that we took the Raptors at home, other than it just being a fishy line, is that crowd is into it. First game of the season, and those Canadians were a hootin' and a hollerin'. Under their new head coach, Darko, this team has a chance to be one of the elite defensive teams in the league. They all look locked in on their rotations. They've got a lot of length. They can switch a lot. And if Jaden McDaniels doesn't break his hand again this season, maybe the Raptors compete for a play-in spot. Another walk-away winner for us, the Thunder, favored by 2.5 at Chicago. They end up winning by 20. Led pretty much the entire game, but really pulled away in the fourth. I watched most of this game on the replay. Couple notes. I know that it came out that the Bulls had a player-only meeting after the game. I think that's a little weird because after watching, I don't really think Billy Donovan's the problem here. Now, maybe that's why they said coach doesn't need to be here, is he's not the problem. But player-only meeting usually means that there's some drama in the locker room that's not just players only. I thought that the Bulls were continuously getting good shots. They're just not good enough to knock them down. They also look pretty locked in on defense, but I heard the Chicago announcers say that they think that they're going to be better on defense this year, even though they lost Patrick Beverley. I don't care what kind of talent you've got on the defensive end. Your team's getting a mentality boost from having Pat Bev, and you're not just going to replace that. You can tell that the Chicago announcers are pretty much over Vucevic. 2 comments that the commentators made on bad Vucevic plays were, quote, Vucevic drops it, he should have caught it, and Vucevic throws it to no one, with exasperated sighs after both of them. What a terrible trade that set that team back a decade. I've got more thoughts on the Thunder that we'll get to on tomorrow's episode, but one thing I will say is Chet and Wemby are not the same. It's much more than an 1.5 height difference. Chet looks frail. He looks a little bit uncoordinated, just a little too big for his own good. Doesn't stand tall on defense and loses some of his length. I think offensively and defensively, Wembanyama is going to have a much greater impact than Chet will. Chet also got put on the floor by Andre Drummond. That's not what you want to see. And our last game of the night was Clippers covering 9.5 against the Blazers. At one point, it was up to 93% of the money on the Blazers. Scoot Henderson fleeced all y'all. I'm tired of this discussion of, hey, is Scoot Henderson, young Russell Westbrook? Screw that comparison. He's not even as good as old Russell Westbrook. Scoot started off 0 for 6, 0 for 3 from three-point. And if it wasn't for Malcolm Brogdon, this team would have never had a chance. As far as the spread goes, the only reason it was even close was Ty Lue took his starters out with like 5.5 minutes left in like a 22-point game, 23-point game. And they couldn't do anything with their backups in, and the Blazers obviously kept all of their starters in until the end of the game. Terrible decision by Ty Lue. I mean, as far as betting, I guess they were never in trouble of losing the game, but it did get down to 10 points with a minute left, which is pretty much the cutoff for a game in the NBA. But for the first 3.5 quarters, the Clippers just dominated, just outclassed them in every facet of the game. Out-rebounded them, outshot them, out-assisted them. Trailblazers really not playing great team ball, only 20 assists on 44 makes. Compare that to the Clippers, who had 36 assists on 47 makes. I'm telling y'all, this Blazers team is going to be bad all year. DeAndre dominating, going 2 for 4. You get 4 shot attempts after all that popping off you did all summer. What an absolute nothing burger that guy is. Okay, so that finishes up the games from last night. Again, we went 8-4-1 with the late ad on the Mavs there to cancel out the Spurs bet. Almost hit the middle. Up 3 units, so hope everybody followed along and made some money. Let's get to tonight's games real quick before I get out of here. We've got 76ers at the Bucks to open the night, and currently the Bucks are 6-point favorites. Keep this pretty short and sweet since we haven't seen either of these teams in action so far this year. I'm going with the Bucks. Things don't seem to be going well right now in Philly. You've got a new coach. You've got James Harden, who allegedly showed up to the team plane and then security personnel had to tell him that he wasn't allowed on the plane. And there's some rumors going around that Embiid might just be a little fed up with all the drama in Philly. You think about his entire career from the process, through the Ben Simmons debacle to letting Jimmy Butler go to now the James Harden drama. I can see Embiid not being totally locked in on this game. That Milwaukee crowd is going to be hyped for the debut of their new superstar duo. And as long as Chris Middleton doesn't go 0 for 16 again, I think the Bucks walk away with this one pretty easily. I know that everyone's ready to get rid of James Harden, but that means that you're starting Pat Bev or DeAnthony Melton at point guard. Or you're moving Kelly Oubre Jr. into the starting lineup and you're going to have Maxey run the point. And I like Maxey, but I'm not sure I like him running my offense. And if you're running that lineup out there defensively, I think that gives the pretty good advantage to the Bucks. Bucks -6. The late game tonight, both on TNT. Thank God. Love TNT. Suns at Lakers. The Lakers are 6-point favorites. They were 5.5-point favorites even last night, although it didn't come out until today that Booker is out. I believe Booker has a foot injury and Beal has a back injury or vice versa, but both of those guys are out tonight. And as such, we will be taking the Lakers -6. I know that's a high line, but I think one of the reasons the Lakers look so bad in Denver was the altitude. First game of the season, probably don't have their legs underneath them. I think it's one reason that AD disappeared in the second half. Again, I'll cover this in much greater detail on tomorrow's extended podcast because I wrote like an entire epic over my thoughts on Anthony Davis in Game 1. But the Lakers are the healthy team here. First game at home. Suns already got their first game on the road here on this little road trip to start the season. With 2 of their top 3 out, I think they're a little shallow. I like the Lakers. I like the Lakers pull away late, as I think the defense can kind of collapse in on KD and really limit their options. And I'm not betting on one of the role players for the Suns to step up super big tonight in Los Angeles. So, all right, that's it for tonight. Only 2 games to recap. We're taking the Bucks -6, Lakers -6. Just call me a bunch of square chalk. I'm sure that those are both losers, but that's how I'm feeling about it. Look forward to a longer version of The Grind podcast, for better or worse, tomorrow. Thanks for joining. Follow us on Twitter at The Grind Podcast. I've been Devin Murray. We'll see you tomorrow.